the world keeps growing, classes keep moving, that increases the need for metals, and there's no new mines coming on stream. But then you factor in our generation's industrial revolution, which is the energy storage, EV, electric vehicles, batteries for solar, batteries for wind power. It's all about storing energy so that we can treat the planet better, but we need metals to do that. And we need a lot of metals to do that.
Welcome back to Talking Hidden Treasures, official podcast of the reality show Hunting Hidden Treasures. Joining me today, I've got treasure hunter Nicole Brewster. She is the CEO of Renforth Resources, working on the Surimeau project there up in Quebec. And Nicole is a successful private corporation. She's been in the mineral exploration industry and a property owner and an exploration contractor, and of course, a management consultant. And now she's, of course, CEO of Renforth here. And so, Nicole, I certainly appreciate you joining me and known you for a little bit here. And you love mining, and you're wearing a shirt that proves it. We may not be able to see it, but that's what you do. So I want to get into. Yeah, there you go. But I want to get into certainly what you're drilling into and get treasure hunters a look into Quebec, I guess you'd say, the Surimeau project. But before we do, let's reel it all back in here and let's go back in time here. And what made Nicole Brewster a treasure hunter?
Well, I grew up in this world. My father's a very established and successful exploration geologist, which it's just a very cool place to be. You're literally finding things, literally creating wealth from the ground up, as the saying goes. But it's like a license to travel the world. It's a license to be a detective in the historical results and documentation. It's an ability. It gives you the opportunity to look at what people have looked at before, and it hasn't been relevant at a point in time, and we're in a different point in time, so things become relevant. I mean, it's like if you love detective fiction, it's the same thing. It's your Sherlock Holmes just with rocks. You're following the clues, and you're looking to build the next mine, tomorrow's mine. So it's a very cool process. It's a unique little place, and it's kind of one of the remaining truly entrepreneurial kind of Wild West. You can create real wealth here still. So it's fun. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess building on the love of the game here, you must have developed some sort of thesis on how important you think these precious minerals are. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
For sure. With Renforth, we're focused on our flagship, which is the Surimeau property, as you said, and it's polymetallic. It's nickel, cobalt, PGEs, platinum group elements, copper, and zinc. These are all minerals needed for the energy transition. They're all minerals which the supply in the world today is more or less balanced, but when you factor in the fact that, the world keeps growing, classes keep moving, that increases the need for metals, and there's no new mines coming on stream. But then you factor in our generation's industrial revolution, which is the energy storage, EV, electric vehicles, batteries for solar, batteries for wind power. It's all about storing energy so that we can treat the planet better, but we need metals to do that, and we need a lot of metals to do that. So the International Energy Association has come out with statistics about dozens and dozens of mines need to be opened by 2030. And it's not going to happen because opening a mine is a minimum 5-year, realistically 10-year process. And we're already 8 years. Our deadline's in 8 years. We're not going to make it. So it's an exciting time to be doing the mining that maybe isn't sexy. You might not get excited about nickel. It looks boring, but it's absolutely one of the most critical things out there right now. So there's geopolitical considerations. There's industrial considerations, like, for example, EVs being manufactured in the United States. They have to be sourcing their materials either in the United States or in a country that has a free trade agreement with the United States, like Canada, pursuant to the inflation bill Biden just signed. So Canada qualifies, but as well, you don't want to be shipping these metals around the planet if you don't have to. So, we need local supplies. We need North American supplies. We need new North American mines. And Canada can go back to what Canada used to be very well known for, which was mining base metals.
Yeah, so you're up there in Quebec, obviously in the prime time area for looking for what you are. So I guess drill into why you love Quebec and give these treasure hunters a few stories about maybe the big score that's happened in Quebec.
Yeah, Quebec has a long and rich mineral history. Mining is a way of life. Internationally respected jurisdiction, regularly ranks in the top 5 of the best jurisdictions in the world. Quebec, we're near a town called Rouyn-Noranda, which has a big pillar on the highway, which is the northern route of our Trans-Canada Highway. That says it's the national copper capital, which means there's been a lot of copper come out of the area just an hour away. Canada's only copper nickel smelter is in Rouyn-Noranda, which is great from our perspective, strategically speaking, for Surimeau. The customer, which is in fact Glencore, is sitting on our doorstep. Interestingly, Surimeau, as well as our gold deposit, which we keep in the background, but we hold a gold deposit on the Cadillac Break, massive structure which starts in Ontario, goes through Quebec, but it's also next door to Canada's largest open pit gold mine, which is the Canadian Malartic mine. Both Surimeau and Parbec, our gold deposit, share a border with Canadian Malartic. Canadian Malartic's a phenomenal success story. It came out of nowhere. It was a geologist who looked at the historic data and said, wait a minute, when they were producing gold in this camp, and lots of gold came out of the Cadillac Malartic Val d'Or, which translates to Valley of Gold, the Val d'Or area. Historically, the grade had to be higher in order to make money processing the material. Well, today it can be lower grade, so they opened the then called a Cisco mine. A lot of people made a lot of money on that sucker because they were the first to prove that you can mine low-grade gold on a large scale. So they changed the paradigm, and they moved half the town. There's a documentary that a bunch of the houses were sitting right on top of the gold. So they picked them up and they moved them. They built new houses to the west. They closed used to be a ball diamond just on the north side of the highway as you left the town of Malartic. Well, they closed that, and now the ball diamond is part of the pit. They're going into Odyssey, so they shut down the ball diamond and they moved the Trans-Canada Highway couple hundred meters to go around the gold. And the head geologist's comment to me now is he doesn't want to know what's under the remainder of the houses because he doesn't want to have to move the town again. So it's definitely a mining community. The story and the excitement has been about gold, but what built it was the base metals. And in fact, due north of us is the crown jewel of Agnico Eagle, which is Canada's largest mining company. The crown jewel is a mine called La Ronde, and it's notable because it's the deepest single shaft mine in North America, at least. The main shaft goes down 2,500 meters, and it's a production shaft. It's called the Penna Shaft after a wild and crazy cowboy who's gone now, but who was named Paul Penna. And he sunk a hole in visible gold, and this mine has been in production for, 15 years anyway, or approaching that. But the Penna Shaft, it's sunk on a VMS. It's a base metal mine. It's a polymetallic base metal mine that's enriched in gold. So people talk about the gold that comes out of it, but a significant amount of copper comes out of it too. And that metal pays. So base metals are what established Canada. Our miners are like our hockey players. You go anywhere in the world with mining and exploration, and you'll find Canadians. Same as our hockey players, right? So, there's fortunes made. It's exciting, and an operating mine is the cash. It's a it's an investment of a different sort. When you're doing what I do, which is exploration, a good drill hole, a company that needs your material, things can change overnight drastically. So this is the exciting end of the market. This is where the potential returns can be exponential, multiples of pricing. So it's exciting stuff.
Yeah. So let's get into a little more intimate with your project here. So again, you mentioned it, the tagline of the company here, nickel backed by gold, quite an opportunity. So yeah, the Surimeau District Project, your newest polymetallic battery metal system with several areas of mineralization, including nickel, cobalt, copper, and zinc, mineralized Victoria structure here. So I guess break that down, Nicole, for people that don't quite understand what I just said there, and talk about how they're going to make some money with you.
Well, we'll do it this way. I'm going to tell you a little story. In the 1940s, there was a hydroelectric dam built on the river. It was called Rapid 7, in French, Rapide 7. They drove a road from a town called Cadillac, which is it's a blip on the Trans-Canada Highway. It's a gas station today. Little village south of the highway, but they drove a road out of Cadillac through the woods, clearing, cutting road down to where they built this massive hydroelectric generating station. It's there, it's in operation, it's power lines, and the road run right through our property. But along the way, they opened up some rock. So, as typically happens, after a road goes through, the exploration geologists always walk through. They wander through because then now they've cut the trees, they've peeled back the dirt, they've exposed rock nobody's seen. So what was found was the Victoria showing, and it was evidenced as well as the Lalonde showing. Lalonde is 3 kilometers north of Victoria on our property. Our property is huge. It's about 4.5 times the size of the island of Manhattan. It's 330 square kilometers. So we're talking big numbers, a lot of distance, a lot of ground for my guys to cover on foot. But this Victoria showing did some sampling from the road, and they pushed a little road into the property that we still use. But it ended up that they had 2 historic pits where they had peeled away the dirt. And when I visited the property, you could taste the sulfides. It tastes like pennies. You can taste the metal, you can smell the metal. And it reminded me of, I worked quite a while for what is the Agustinides mine in Spain, but it's in the Iberian Pyrite Belt, which is a huge base metal. It's been mined there since the Romans. Smelt the same, looked the same. So we had these 2 areas. We started sampling. We did discover that there was a very small amount of exploration work done at both Lalonde and Victoria in the 1980s, but they were looking for gold. They were looking for gold, and they didn't care that they were finding copper, zinc, nickel, cobalt. They only wanted gold. So sometimes they assayed the drill holes. Sometimes they just drilled them, and when they didn't see gold, they just put them away. But they still found the base metals. They just didn't care. And the base metals were associated with a particular rock type, ultramafics. Well, there's 2 rock types, but you could see the ultramafics on surface. So we took that information and we started looking around and tracing that further. And we went to the geophysics, which is measuring the rock from, helicopters. And we could see a geophysical trend, an anomaly. And fast forward, we've had this property for just about 2 years doing grassroots exploration now. And it's just starting to get interesting. Because of discovery, there's no aha moment. Discovery is a slow process. But we've traced this now. This geophysical structure that hosts Victoria is 20 kilometers long. It has a little fold in the western end, but it's literally a specific rock type in the sediments. It's intruded in there, and it's given fluids a way to come through and cool and leave behind metal. It's the coolest thing how metals are formed. But 20 kilometers there and Lalonde, we know that the structure geophysically is perhaps 30 kilometers long, but we've traced the mineralization over 9 kilometers. So right there between the 2 showings, or the 2 the two areas, we're looking at 29 kilometers of mineralization. And the neat thing is, it starts on surface. We stripped 275 meters. We took all the overburden off. It wasn't a lot because it's a higher point of land, but we removed all the trees and all the dirt so the geologists could get a really good look. It's kind of like, a frosted window where you just shine a little bit so you can see through. So that gave us a bit of a better picture of the mineralization. But absolutely on surface, copper, nickel, zinc, cobalt, all these metals. And what that means, if we look forwards to when this will become, I'm pretty sure, a mine, it's going to be a surface mine, which, because we're beside Canada's largest open pit gold mine, it's not going to be a hard thing to do because in Quebec, they know mining. They're living beside the biggest open pit gold mine. So it's not going to shock them. And the ground we're working on is absolutely uninhabited. So it's got all the things it needs.
Yeah, so I guess you paint a quite a picture of this being a mine. So let's get into how it's going right now. Give us an idea of the current day activity here. Summertime here. I got to believe a lot of work's going on.
There is summertime. Summertime means no snow because when they get snow up there, they get feet of snow. It gets really cold, but the cold's okay. It's the snow that's the problem. So yeah, while I'm confident it will be a mine, there's a lot of steps between here and a mine, and those steps are actually opportunities because they'll all have news flow associated with them and different levels of excitement. What we've been doing this summer was surface work, guys literally walking around, taking samples. They did a lot of sampling and prospecting in May, beginning of June, wettest time of year to do it. So some areas were not accessible. They went back in July and they did some channel sampling actually at Lalonde because Lalonde's given us the best visual mineralization on the property so far, in fact. So we can't ignore it. They were at the property last week for a different reason and they told me it's dried up significantly. So while we were awaiting our results from Lalonde, we're moving ahead just based on visuals, and we're going to permit additional stripping and do the stripping. And again, that means removing the trees, removing all the overburden to expose the rock. We're going to do it north-south, so across the mineralization runs east-west. So we're going to cut slots. There's one thing that happened to us this summer. We did the stripping I told you at Victoria, and it's pretty wide. It's 50 meters wide at least. And we did crosscuts to the north and to the south a little bit, just in case. And what we found out this summer was our crosscuts came up about 30 meters short of another horizon of mineralization at Victoria. So we have to extend. We're going to do a longer one at Victoria, but that also means that when we did our initial drilling at Victoria, where we drilled 5,600 meters, we missed a whole horizon of mineralization because our drill holes were in front of it. They were south of it, and the mineralization was behind the drills. So we're going to try to avoid that mistake. It's not really a mistake. It's inevitable. It's exploration. We're creating data, but we're going to try to avoid that by doing some nice long crosscuts at Lalonde, get a picture of the mineralization. That'll realistically happen September through October. Then it'll lead into probably drilling at the end of the year. We're doing this work. We could drill this property anytime. Literally, you drive right onto the property. We pull in a trailer, we put a cellular repeater up, and we park the trucks. And then the guys take the ATVs or snowmobiles to the drill collars. So drilling year round isn't a problem, but this kind of groundwork, boots on the ground, prospecting, stripping, channel sampling, we can only do that, in the spring sort of, but in the summer and fall. So we're going to do that. We won't get too far into October before the snow starts flying there. So we're trying to hit the ground running for the fall. That all means news, and eventually it all means disclosure of results as well. And at some point, people are going to start listening to the canary who's in the coal mine right now crying, saying, we don't have enough metal. We got to find the metal. And the market will realize that the mining market's been so depressed for so long, specifically the exploration side of it, that there's money to be made in mining and in exploration. with success. And we're demonstrating continued success at Surimeau. Every time we go out, the property only gets better. It only grows. So, I have no reason to think that won't continue. We've got lots of drilling we can do. We've got lots more prospecting to do as well.
Yeah. So I guess in wrapping up here, Nicole, how to pay attention to Renforth and their success, and I guess let's talk about the different stages here and on how you do make money in mining opportunities. So you're a publicly traded company, your RFR on the CSE in Canada, your RFHRF, the OTC markets in the States. So if those who don't want to go get a metal detector and go out and spot some desolate land somewhere, or get an excavator and buy some land, they might choose to treasure hunt with you. So I guess, yeah, let's talk about the different steps here. You just named them all on how you really do make money treasure hunting with Nicole Brewster and Renforth.
Yeah, I mean, the work I do, I'm a significant shareholder. Pretty much my entire financial reality is tied up in Renforth. And it is not meant to be, a job for 30 years. It's meant to be a company that the asset grows to such a size that and the need for the metals, it grows exponentially, and the company gets taken over. I mean, that's personally my exit strategy. I fully intend to make a lot of money with Renforth. I'm not screwing around here. There's lots of things everybody could do every day. You do what you think will make you money, right? So we're building an asset. We're doing it carefully. Maybe we're doing it slowly, but mining, the rocks took a long time to get where they got to. They're not going anywhere, and there's no need to rush into it. But we continue to prove. We've proven the extent of the mineralization. We know it extends for 20 kilometers. We know Lalonde is 9 kilometers. We're not done at Lalonde. Victoria, we're done because that's the width of the property. We're going from end to end on the property. So we can't go any further with Victoria. We still have lots of question marks at completely different nature, but we know we have 20 kilometers of mineralization. Lalonde, we're only on a portion of it. We're at 9 kilometers. Realistically, we will be trying to extend that, although maybe not this year at this point. But we're going to define the extent of the mineralization. Those two locations, there's another handful of areas we could deal with. But then we have to demonstrate the nature of the mineralization, the tenor of the metal. Right now, we're looking like we are a large-scale, low-grade nickel sulfide polymetallic. So what does that mean to people? Well, large scale, it's big. It's really big. And it's at surface, which is important when it's big because it's cheaper to mine from surface than it is to go underground. So we're going to mine it in the cheapest way possible. We also have a smelter, the only one in Canada, an hour away, owned by a major multinational mining company that needs feed for their smelter. So our customer's sitting there waiting. We've got the shortest distance I've ever heard of to send concentrate. So we're set up in that regard. So we know it's big. We know the metals go underground because we have drilled it, as I said, a couple 100 meters down. We can drill it deeper. Typically, grades get better as you go deeper, which, given that we found 3.4% nickel over 1.5 meters, it sounds like maybe it'll happen. Now, I said we're low grade, which means we're looking at about a 0.25 range in terms of the nickel grade, plus, because we're featuring this as a nickel asset. Then you take the value of all the other metals, you're going to add it back to create an overall nickel equivalent grade. Not doing that math, it constantly changes with metal prices, but large scale, low grade nickel sulfide. Nickel sulfide is class 1 nickel. It's the preferred battery metals, or the preferred battery material. And then all the other metals that come along with it. Now, what does that all really, really mean? I did a conference in Toronto a couple months ago, and I met a fellow there named Mark Selby, who's the president and CEO, or the chairman and the CEO, forgive me, of Canadian Nickel. We're sort of a baby Canadian Nickel. They're a good analogy for what Renforth is. We're just a couple years behind them. Not even a couple years. We're probably about a year behind them in terms of what we're doing. There's a similar deposit to ours to the north of us. It's called the Dumont deposit. It's outside of Amos, Quebec. You can find Dumont, but what you have to do is trace how much Waterton Private Equity, which is domiciled in islands south of you, paid for that deposit. They took it private, and to the tune of many tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. So the thesis is there. We grow the asset, we establish how much metal is in the asset. The market will value it like they're valuing Canada Nickel, and or how they value Dumont, which got taken private. And I know what I'm talking about. We did this with the property we used to hold to the north of us. We made a discovery on the property, like we did at Surimeau, but we grew the asset just enough and we sold it. We successfully sold it for more money than we put into the ground. And we used that. It was strategic. We used that to fund our work at Surimeau and at Parbec, our gold deposit. Now we're tying a ribbon around Parbec. We might do a little bit more work, but we've done a material amount of work since the last resource estimate was calculated. And gold is desired, but for us strategically, why do we say we're nickel backed by gold? Because the gold will become a financial instrument for us at some point and would fund the work at the nickel asset. So all the pieces are there. So what can people benefit from? The market becoming aware of the fact that we are large-scale, low-grade nickel sulfide surface deposit with road access and hydroelectric power. These are all very important. The German chancellor is in this country to meet with our prime minister, and he just observed that Canada is like Russia, just as well endowed with natural resources, but it differs in that it has a stable democracy. Jurisdictional risk is going to become very real. We're seeing it happening in mining. So we're in the right location. We're at the right time. We have the right metals. We'll continue to put out exploration news, and I am attending various conferences and marketing the company. So I'm talking to anyone who will stand still long enough to hear me, because that's my job, to get the word out while the geologists do their work. And investors, how they benefit, get along for the ride. I think it's going to be a good one.
Well, we certainly look forward to tracking your progress there, Nicole, and a great overview. And she doesn't just love mining, folks. She loves money as well. So it looks like you've got quite a plan for Renforth there. So Nicole Brewster, the CEO of Renforth Resources, RFR CSE in Canada. If you want to track them, RFHRF, the OTC markets in the States. Nicole, I really appreciate that deep dive into the company. And again, look forward to tracking your success moving forward.
Thanks so much for your time, and for anyone watching, I appreciate it. And check out our website, Facebook, any digital media you can think of, and watch us on Stock Pulse. And any questions, reach out. So thanks, guys.